Well, Josh, we're back for another review. So why don't we talk about a nice, simple comedy from the 1980s. Oh. Talking about UHF, starring Weird Al, Michael Richards, Victoria Jackson, and directed by Jay Levy, who also has a cameo in the film as Gandhi. Do you know much about Emo Phillips?
Yeah, he's still okay.
We're here to talk about UHF.
Yes, what does that mean?
That's the big question, is do people even know what that means anymore?
I can't imagine. I mean, people our age and older.
Yeah.
You know, UHF didn't last much past us, I don't think.
No, and it's unfortunate because this is one of my favorite childhood movies.
Absolutely.
It's one of those movies that's kind of hard to look at objectively and like separate my nostalgia for it. But I did rewatch it very recently. Okay. And I was surprised at how much of it holds up and doesn't feel dated. Mm-hmm. But the unfortunate part is that the entire premise of the movie is dated because it's about a UHF station.
Broadcast television, what's that?
Then on to UHF, ultra high frequency. This goes from 300 megahertz to 3 gigahertz. You'll find most television stations in this area, as well as cell phone coverage and Wi-Fi.
Well, it's a particular wavelength. VHF stands for very high frequency. And that's the band of radio waves that essentially that TV had at the time. That's channels 2 through 13. How they divide up, I'm not exactly sure. I'm sure you can look at Wikipedia or something and find that out if you're really excited about it. But UHF is ultra high frequency. And so that was the next band up. And eventually, people wanted more channels than just 12. So there got to be up to like I feel like it was maybe up in the 70s. Some of the TVs would go that high. A crazy amount of stations, and the more stations there were, the weirder it got.
No, I'll show you. No, I don't want to go.
It's kind of the thing now where I look at like, you've got your channels that you get over broadcast. If you do get them over broadcast, it's digital and it's split into like maybe 2 or 3 different channels. Mm-hmm. And one of those channels where it's just like, we just show Westerns all day. Yeah. Because we don't have to pay for them. Or we don't have to pay very much. And it's kind of that when rerun culture wasn't as strong and maybe it was still kind of owned by the bigger channels. It was a big deal that like, you'd run through your series of 26 weeks, and then it would start over again, so you could see it again. Mm-hmm. That was a big deal, and that's they don't do that anymore. They just show different shows, or just have another season if you're like Survivor or something, where it's just we might as well just keep doing it. Okay.
Well, now everybody just streams every season on whatever service hasn't pulled the show yet.
That's true. But or at least certain episodes.
They're coming for you, Golden Girls.
Oh Jesus.
So the movie is the star vehicle for Weird Al Yankovic.
Yes.
And we should probably start with that, talking about Weird Al.
Oh man, luckily people today still know about Weird Al. He's bigger than ever.
That's what I wanted to mention, yeah. Is like, he's the only artist, and I'll call him an artist.
Absolutely.
That I can think of that has been around my entire life, continued to make new stuff my entire life, and has continued to stay quality with the stuff he makes. Yeah. For as long as I've been around, Weird Al has always been there.
Mm-hmm. And it's because he's so good at tapping into pop culture, particularly via song, but he's able to do that so easily and so well that it's just he's able to surf along with the rest of the world and just kind of be in his little spot.
Mm-hmm. It seems like a generally good guy.
Absolutely.
I don't think anyone has anything bad to say about Weird Al. Now you have like younger generations of like comedy people that still like to work with him, and he's like an elder statesman of comedy at this point.
Yeah, that's actually been super gratifying to see, like people like like Scott Aukerman come up and be like, have this position of power of like podcasts, but also doing like the Comedy Bang Bang TV show, and just like you have Weird Al as your band leader, fucking yeah. But so, or like showing up on like Tim and Eric or stuff like that.
Yeah,
where like it's very, very modern stuff.
Here's an amazing clip from 1993.
I want to go on a horse and buggy ride.
And Al's got his position in that world, I think probably just because people like us that just grew up as fans. And just jumped at the chance to have him involved.
Yeah, Weird Al really appeals to that subsection of fandom that I call comedy nerds.
Yeah.
The people that ruin comedy for everybody else.
Yeah.
I went to high school with some people that endlessly quoted Monty Python to the point where I avoided Monty Python like the plague for years.
Yeah, when we talked about doing this, like you initially were saying, like maybe you'd go back and revisit, or you said you had just seen it, and it was like, I'm good. It's like it's all in my brain, and it's of a certain particular time that like. It's also nice that it's mainstream, and I think it's a little more. If I make references to it, people get it a little better than a lot of things from that era.
Yeah, well, especially now. It's a movie that's kind of endured.
Yeah,
because it famously was a huge flop. It came out the same year, like a huge year for especially sequels, but just big movies in general. It was like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Lethal Weapon 2 or 3. Batman was that year.
Yeah.
It was just like a ton of big movies, and it just got buried.
Yeah, it was going to be Orion's big hope for the year. It tested through the roof. It's a huge deal, and I don't know how much longer Orion lasted past that, but it was not real long.
No.
One reason I've been able to live in such splendor is because of my part in UHF, and I still get residuals. In fact, the gift that keeps on giving.
Let's just go ahead and talk about what UHF is.
It starts off with the Indiana Jones parody.
Right.
Yeah.
As Al would do with the songs, it's got everything right. It's definitely, you can tell that they studied it, they looked at it, and reproduced it as best they could. And with, just with jokes.
Right. Well, that's the funny thing is, because like I said, I rewatched it recently, and I was curious to see how many of the jokes felt kind of dated or references to things that people might not even remember anymore. And a lot of it holds up because, like, Indiana Jones obviously was contemporary at the time. The third one was coming out the same summer as this. But Raiders of the Lost Ark has gone on to be a classic, so that still holds up because everybody knows Indiana Jones still.
Exactly.
Everybody knows like imagery and iconography from the Rambo movies. So all those little things that he sprinkles in. There's only a few jokes throughout that just feel completely dated.
They're real specific.
But yeah, some real specific ones. But they don't bring the movie down. I always come back when I think about bad parody. There's a part in I think I've mentioned this on a past episode, but there's a part in Scary Movie 2 where they parody. I want to say it's a Nike commercial that was on at the time, and it's just people dribbling a basketball, and it's in the movie, and you watch that now, and no one has any idea what the fuck this is. Like, it's something that was popular for 4 months when the movie came out.
Oh, God.
Like, you instantly dated it.
Terrible idea.
Yeah. And it goes along with, I know one of his sort of rules that he goes by in doing parody songs is like, the song has to be funny on its own right.
Yeah.
Like, you don't necessarily have to know what it's parodying for it to be funny.
Yes.
Because most of his songs, the parody songs, aren't really related to, there's like Smells Like Nirvana, which is about how you can't understand what Kurt Cobain's singing.
Right.
But most of them are their own separate thing, and the lyrics are funny and clever in their own right. And so that's a lot of this movie too, where it's like, you might not get the reference, but the joke is usually still pretty funny.
Starts off with George Newman, played by Weird Al Yankovic. But he and his best friend are clearly at their end of their tethers after working a ton of dead-end jobs.
Well, I think the fries are just about done.
And it's really got a lot of plot for a movie like this, and a lot of characters that you really care about. Because you want, you start off with George and Bob, and they're nice guys, and they're just trying to get ahead. They're just trying to live their life and have Twinkie Wiener sandwiches and try to cheer each other up. George's Uncle Harvey, rich Uncle Harvey, he's a gambler, and he wins a TV station.
Worthless UHF station that just plays reruns of Mr. Ed or whatever.
Right. And so George's aunt actually convinces Harvey, oh, give it to George. He's a smart kid and he needs something to do, and he's very imaginative.
George dear, can you come over here for a second?
And from then on, it's the wheels are off.
He turns the station around. He makes a bunch of new programming, and then the slimy local network affiliate tries to take him down.
Ooh, that Kevin McCarthy.
And then they have to band together to save the station. It's a very like simple, very kind of generic plot. And I've heard Weird Al talk about how he kind of wishes if he went back and did it again, he would make the plot less generic. But to me, that works perfectly for what the movie is, because there's so many, one-off gags and non sequiturs and stuff that it really helps to have that kind of familiar framework to hold everything together on. Yeah,
it makes it easy. It makes it easy to care about the characters because you get the kind of the sort of generic stereotypes they're filling in, and they're not super generic, but it's at least there's a woman at the station who wants to do more.
It's kind of hard to get promoted when every other week you have a new boss. This job really sucks.
And this is my friend Bob. Hi, nice to meet you.
And, played by Fran Drescher, who's fantastic.
Pre-sitcom Fran Drescher and pre-sitcom Michael Richards. And that's Michael Richards' personal blowout aside, I know you don't like Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Seinfeld is my favorite sitcom of all time.
I'm not a big fan of Seinfeld, but either way, he's so good in this movie.
Yeah, but you talk about that, he's down on his luck, he's the janitor, he gets fired by Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah. You're fired!
But I didn't.
Get out!
People are...
They take his mop.
But that's the quirk that makes it funny and also surprisingly endearing, is that it's not that he's fired from his job, but he has his mop that he loves. It was given to him when he was 8 years old.
Because all he ever wanted to be was a janitor.
Yeah.
So really, he's fulfilling his dreams, but then they take his mop.
They take his mop away.
That mop was given to me for my birthday when I was 8 years old. We've never been apart.
And it's so, it's goofy because it's a mop, but it's still, his delivery and the way it's executed is just so kind of sweet.
Yeah, I've definitely seen things like outtakes from Seinfeld where everybody else kind of crack it up and Michael Richards is just
yeah,
he's very serious about his
consummate
acting.
Professional. Yeah. And pre-Seinfeld, it was did you ever see Transylvania 65000?
I never have. No.
He's hilarious in that.
Yeah.
All these early weird things that he did.
Huh? Good. It's a beautiful day today.
Hey, are you okay?
The first half is really funny, and then it just kind of fizzles out. But yeah, Michael Richards steals the show in that movie. He's this weird little baby that he makes talk through a door, and. For a movie that's mostly just gag after gag after gag, it finds a way to make you care about what's happening.
And by God, you even care about the sleazy news owner of the big network station, Kevin McCarthy. His kid works there. Everybody else that seems to work at that place seems fairly affable enough. I mean, there's the guy with the hat and the mustache.
And take that ridiculous thing off.
But yeah, and that helps too. The villain of the movie, Kevin McCarthy, is so slimy.
Oh yeah,
it's ridiculous without him even having to try to be funny.
I mean, isn't it illegal to own 2 television stations in the same town?
Really? Gee. I guess I'll have to turn this place into a parking lot.
It's so funny.
Oh man, and you get the feeling he must have just loved doing that. You'd love being a character actor and get a role like that. So it's in that way it's cartoony, but again, it lets you concentrate more on the jokes because you don't have to think too hard about people's motivations.
Well, it's all very familiar. It's all like a very simple plot. We've seen it before, but I think that comfort of a normal story really works in the movie's favor.
Yeah, you got your good people over here, you got your bad guy over here, you got an alien, which was Anthony Geary, who was from General Hospital.
Yeah, which I never watched General Hospital, but I know the big arc on that was the Luke and Laura story.
Yeah,
he was Luke?
Yep, he was a rapist that somehow became her true love.
Oh, is that what happened?
Soap operas.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and he was not apparently the first choice for this role. I guess they were looking at a young fellow by the name of Mr. Joel Hodgson.
Well, that's something to point out. Mentioning Joel Hodgson is for as kind of mainstream and well known as Weird Al is, he seems to have a taste in kind of more niche, obscure, comedy people. And so a lot of them show up in this movie. That's how you end up with, like, Emo Phillips.
There's only a few simple principles you must bear in mind before attempting to operate a sophisticated piece of machinery like this
table saw.
And this was my introduction to a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, and I was super lucky when I was young because we had HBO, and they would have like the half-hour comedy specials. So I was really was like excited about that. Just like, oh man, and Emo Phillips is in it too.
You believe this? Oh, will you look at that?
But yeah, so I was super excited to see like some of the comedy names pop up, and Victoria Jackson at the time was famous from SNL, and she does a nice job just kind of being the love interest.
She has the least comedic material to work with. She has to play the straight person.
Yeah, she does a fine job.
She does a fine job. I guess somebody has to play that role.
I just don't know what's wrong with me!
So what's for dinner?
The Kipper kids show up.
Oh, the Kipper kids.
I don't know the history of the Kipper kids, but I know they're in the movie Forbidden Zone.
And see, yeah, that's the other thing, is that seeing a movie that they made, 15 years before that, and apparently that was still their shtick. I didn't know what they were at the time. UHF,
I still don't know what they are exactly.
I don't know. I just know one of them's married to Bette Midler.
Yeah, that's something I found out relatively recently. It's like, well, that's a fact that's in my brain now.
Wow.
Yeah, but that's to go back to the deleted scenes. Most of their performance is cut out of the movie, but
okay.
It's still, you just see that little, as a kid, I was like, what the fuck is this? I need to learn more.
Yeah, yeah.
They hate it when you do this. Oh, look! They're really mad now.
But that's the thing, is like with such a standard plot, you can take just like 5 minutes to go on a detour where, yeah, we have this weird animal show.
Yeah,
this guy making turtles stick to the ceiling, and
I like the range of that too, where like it's everything from like movie trailer parodies, like the Gandhi trailer, the movie trailer, or the Conan the Librarian, of course.
Don't you know the Dewey Decimal System?
Down to something, like TV commercials like Spatula City. Like everybody knows the template for, commercials like that. You've seen that your whole life.
And what better way to say I love you than with the gift of a spatula?
So much of it is so generalized, where even if there's some sort of specific target he was going after, it still works, even if you don't know it.
Yeah.
A couple things, like he does a bit that's kind of a parody of Geraldo at the time, or Sally Jesse Raphael, those types of shows, which...
It's a little dated, but it's still funny.
He blew the lid off Satanism.
Look, all I was trying to say...
Oh, shut up, you pinhead! You make me sick!
Yeah, I mean, there's a specific thing in it where, like, they throw a chair at him, which actually happened to Geraldo.
Yes. And then they cut back to him with the head all bandaged and everything, and it's a good sight gag.
Yeah.
All this week on Town Talk.
And the great kind of feeling of how shows develop, even though like the shows that they have, like, yeah, it's local talent we found, and we just shot it in, we shot Royal's Wild Kingdom in his apartment, and there's no production there, but money-wise there, which is like, yeah, let's just see what this guy does, or how Stanley Spadowski's Clubhouse evolves out of Uncle George's Clubhouse, or whatever it's called initially, and
Uncle Nutsy's Clubhouse.
Uncle Nutsy's Clubhouse.
How'd you like to do it every day?
Yeah, that would be neat. Hey, wait a minute. Do I still get to be the janitor?
Stanley just falls into this show like a duck to water. He just wants to talk to America, talk to all the kids about being a janitor and having dreams, and it ends up being the huge success. But I specifically remember I was trying to tell my first band, my drummer, I was trying to tell him about UHF because he'd never seen it. and it was going to be on like Comedy Central or something. And this was when we were still in college, so we were in the dorms, and we you could call each other's dorm rooms. And I'm sitting there watching it, and the fire hose scene happens.
You get to drink from the fire hose! Okay, you ready? Open wide!
The phone rings, and I pick it up, and before I can even say hello, I just hear him laughing. And then I just hang up. Because it's not, that's something that could come off malicious in the wrong hands. And it doesn't at all.
No, there's such an innocence and kind of a good-natured tone to the whole movie.
Yeah.
Which is why when you have like slimy Kevin McCarthy, like the worst things he says in the movie are like something that a child would say.
Yeah.
This community means about as much to me as a festering bowl of dog snot.
He's Elmer Fudd. He's Yosemite Sam.
Same with the violence in the movie, which has been a running thing in all of Weird Al's stuff. He loves comical-looking violence.
Oh yeah.
That's the stuff that stuck out to me as a kid, like the Conan the Librarian sketch.
I'm sorry. These books are a little overdue.
The Emo Phillips scene, which I think he had to fight to keep in the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like they were concerned that he could probably get a PG if that was cut out, but he left it in, so it got a PG-13.
Okay.
But that's like, it's like Monty Python stuff with just the blood squirting out.
Totally.
And the Emo Phillips scene, I'm assuming, have you ever watched the deleted scenes for the movie? There's some extended versions of that scene. And it stuck out to me because in the movie, he cuts his thumb off, and then I think the scene kind of ends, but in the deleted scenes, you see him like picking it up, and he puts it in his pocket. And then
he puts it in his mouth?
I always try to tell my students to keep these in their mouths until they can get them resewn at the hospital. Now over here.
There's another take where he puts it in his mouth, and that resonated with me because when I was in elementary school, our gym doubled as our cafeteria. And so for lunchtime, they would have these big collapsible tables that they would fold out. And I'd always heard a story about one day when they were folding those up, someone got their finger stuck in it and their finger snapped off. And my third grade teacher put the finger in her mouth to get to the hospital. That's apparently a real thing you're supposed to do if someone's finger gets severed. I don't know if it's to keep it moist or what.
Keep it warm?
Keeping it warm. I don't know.
Keep it warm for you.
But that's a real thing. And I always remembered that story from when I was a little kid. So then years later when the UHF DVD came out, I was like, someone else did that.
There you go. But so we can talk about that whole thing, the whole third act, where it's like we've got to get the community together to save our station.
Yeah.
And it's such a great like let's put on a show kind of thing, and just all sorts of there's all the most ridiculous acts. It kind of reminds me of the end of True Stories again, where it's like all the local acts show up, and it's the cowboy that yodels upside down, and, and the Kipper kids doing whatever it is that they're doing, and just all sorts of stuff like that for the 24-hour marathon.
Hey, Cooney! Hiya, George! Beginners class today, huh?
Yeah, they're so stupid!
We didn't talk about Cooney.
Yeah, I mentioned that actor, Geddy Watanabe, when Mike and I talked about Gremlins 2, and how he was always kind of playing that role.
He's always
the Asian stereotype,
yeah.
Even though he's like a dude from Utah.
Right. Well, he's in a movie Vamp that you showed to me.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Vamp.
It's like the one movie where he gets to use his actual accent.
Yeah.
Babe, what time do you get off?
2:30.
Can I watch?
He was definitely that go-to guy for like we need an Asian person, an Asian male, to be funny and have an accent.
But he gives it his all. I mean, him just calling everybody stupid.
Nothing! Absolutely nothing! Stupid! You're so stupid!
But he gets to host a wonderful show called Wheel of Fish. And he's still the karate instructor.
He's still wearing the karate outfit for no real reason.
Because that's his identity in the movie. Again, we're not going too deep with any of these characters.
That's true. Yeah.
He's Cooney's Cooney, and you want to give him a show because he's your friend, and you've got a TV station. Go for it.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? You want to host a game show about fish? Fantastic.
Well, the fact that all the shows they create, at least early on, have that sort of like DIY kind of charm to them, where it's just like, I'll get my next door neighbor who's a karate instructor, and I guess Trinidad Silva, it turns out no one knows who he is or where he came from.
No.
I thought you hired him. But.
That's right.
Where did you find this guy?
Me? I thought you hired him.
Yeah, and the idea that they're able to start licensing B movies to show, like Gandhi 2.
Yeah, I guess that doesn't really fit because that's an actual movie in this world, I suppose. It's not like something they made.
Exactly. Well, and that's kind of what I thought Conan the Librarian was as well.
Yeah, I suppose.
Like trailers for movies they're going to show. Because, well, that was very popular on UHF stations. Like, you know, that's like something like Mystery Science Theater 3000 exists because this UHF station has all these movies they've licensed that they can just do whatever they want with, essentially.
Yeah.
So that's why that show exists. Is they just had all these B movies that like KTMA owned or owned the license to show.
Gandhi 2.
We can talk about the music because that's important for Weird Al.
That's true.
About half of the soundtrack is in the movie in spots here and there, depending on where you look. Obviously, there's the title song.
It's a very catchy song.
Absolutely.
I tend to like Weird Al's original songs more than his parodies.
They're really good.
Have you ever heard Albuquerque?
Yes, I have.
However, that's like 20 minutes long or whatever.
Yep.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Oh God. His style parodies. I mean, it's Dare to Be Stupid is not a specific parody. It's a style parody.
Sounds like Devo.
Yeah, more than Devo ever did.
Yeah.
Somehow. But yeah, so there's UHF. Briefly, while Uncle Harvey is in the pool, there's Let Me Be Your Hog, which I dearly love.
Let me be your hog. Let me be your hog now.
That confused me as a kid because I had this soundtrack on cassette tape, and they only did the little bit of Let Me Be Your Hog just for what needed to be playing on his radio there.
Yeah.
And so on the soundtrack, it plays it, and then it just, like, you hear like a record skip, and it just ends.
It goes to the next song.
And I was like, is my tape defective? What just happened? I didn't get it.
But yeah, apparently that was because they wanted to license like some dumb song or whatever, and just like couldn't afford it. Al's just like, I'll just write it.
Yeah. Well, when they first drive to the station, there's like this weird doo-wop song playing, which is just, it's not Weird Al's band doing the song, but it's Weird Al doing the singing. And that's just like, we need a little piece of music here, just make something.
Little music, yeah.
Yeah.
But the big centerpiece is the Money for Nothing video.
That whole sequence feels like it's in there because it's like, wow, this is what people expect from Weird Al.
It kind of does.
Because the movie goes off in all these little non sequiturs, but that's like an entire music video.
Yeah, and
the movie stops dead in its
plot,
tracks.
full stops for that.
Yeah.
I mean, but he's still, it's meant to. He's daydreaming.
That's true, and it is television related.
It's MTV, definitely.
Yeah. And Beverly Hillbillies.
And Beverly Hillbillies too.
Ties in with his cheapo.
Oh, that's right. He's actually watching Beverly Hillbillies when he drifts off.
Yeah. But yeah, that music video, it seems like, I don't know if this is the case, but like in the 80s, there was a lot of, and I think it was like Pee-wee's Big Adventure that started the idea of like the movie vehicle for a comedy persona or a comedy character.
What?
Because you had like Pee-wee's Big Adventure was a big hit, and then like Elvira gets her own movie, or like that's where Ernest gets his movie. And so this kind of falls in that, where it's like, there's the Weird Al vehicle.
To a point.
He's not a like full-blown like comedy character, like an Ernest or something, but it's a comedy persona. I mean, it's Weird Al. So.
Yeah. I definitely feel like that movie would not have existed without Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Yeah.
It had to have that success ahead of it.
It has not quite the same tone. It has more of a Zucker Brothers tone, but it's still, there's echoes of Pee-wee, the kind of absurdity.
Well, but in being based around the comedic character like that, like you say, like that was really the first of its kind. And like, you get kind of, like the Elvira stuff and stuff, like, and the Ernest stuff is like kind of, it doesn't feel the same to me as like Pee-wee, because it's so specific. Like Pee-wee had been around for years before the movie happened. Whereas
so did Elvira.
So did Elvira, but not in that context. Like Pee-wee had it was a performing thing.
It was a full formed like character.
That's what I mean. Where like there were shows built around him already. Whereas Elvira was just like, no shade on Elvira, I love her.
Elvira's great.
But she was just a horror host.
Yeah.
And so she had that's not really a context for a movie necessarily. So I think more was developed on like this Weird Al character that supposedly, kind of exists in people's heads.
Yeah.
And
what do people associate with Weird Al with? Oh, parodies. And so we put him in a TV station, and we can do parodies of movies and TV shows and music
and commercials.
It's about the best vehicle you could come up with for a Weird Al movie.
Definitely. Yeah.
What else are you gonna do with them?
There's nothing else you'd really want to do. He's not gonna be Leslie Nielsen. He's not gonna do something like that.
Although he did show up in all the Naked Gun movies.
This is true.
Weird Al Yankovic is on the plane.
as himself in the first one, and in the second one, I don't even think I realized it was him till years later.
No. Say your prayers. Nice work, Frank.
What? Yeah, doesn't have the mustache, I don't think. And this is like before when he always had the mustache back then. Yeah. This is actually, and this is pretty. Yeah, this is pretty close to where his image started to change, and he grew his hair out, and that version of Weird Al.
That era. Well, that's the thing about him too. Is like he'll have an album come out, and then he'll kind of go away from the spotlight for a little bit, and then a new album will come out, and people are reminded of him.
Oh yeah.
That's why he's endured, I think, because
For sure.
it's like. I mean, everyone always points out that he's lasted longer than a lot of the acts he parodies.
That's true.
And it's because like he's not like constantly, in the spotlight. He just kind of comes and goes.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like people get just enough time to forget about him to a point, but not enough time to just like, who's that?
Yeah, and which is amazing for someone that makes parody songs. That feels like such a small window. Like you have one big hit parody song and then you vanish.
There's literally no one else.
No one else has ever done what Weird Al has done and
Yeah.
had this sort of endurance.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And it's just, you wonder about what the actual, reason for that is, whether it's just that he's so prescient and able to pick out the right songs, or the way that he treats them, because his band is amazing.
Yeah, talented band. He has perfect pitch, right? So I mean, he's a talented musician, and he's just making these goofy songs.
So it holds up nicely today, definitely.
If you're into that kind of humor.
Well,
because it's very silly. It's very Zucker Brothers meets Monty Python a little bit.
Yeah.
Meets just Weird Al. I think that's the thing, is Weird Al has such a specific kind of persona and a specific kind of good-natured tone to his comedy, and this movie reflects that. Zucker Brothers, I mean, not they're too offensive or anything, but they have some stuff that's a little bit that Weird Al wouldn't do.
No, it's a little more Randy.
A tiny more edge to it, and Weird Al is. I mean, that's why I say I loved him as a little kid. He still holds up today.
Yeah,
because he can appeal to just so many different people, so many different ages.
Yeah, and then just it made sense at the time because of things like he would go on MTV and there would be little parodies that they would do for that. So it was that almost also feels like it was kind of building up to the movie.
Oh yeah, I always used to love his specials. He had one every time an album came out.
They were great.
When he would do his interviews, where he just took other footage of a person being interviewed and changed the questions and re-edited it.
We've had a lot of great guests dropping by. Have you ever met Celine Dion?
I have felt like killing her before.
Well, obviously, we all have.
Yes, later used to much success on Space Coast Coast to Coast.
Yeah, that's true.
Which Al was on.
Okay.
Connections.
Yeah. That's the thing, is I feel like he connects to so many different types of comedy and different comedy people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Through multiple generations now.
Just by doing what he does, sticking to it. Yeah, so UHF, it definitely has stuck with me over the years. And has been as entertaining as it ever was.
It's a hard one to talk about where you don't end up just kind of quoting the movie, because there's so many lines.
Stupid!
But yeah, even little throwaway jokes like Jambi.
Oh yeah, we didn't mention that.
Yeah.
Talking about all the random people that are in this movie. John Paragon.
John Paragon is the son of the owner of the network station.
Who has he doesn't have a lot of comedy stuff to work with, but he's got his laugh that he does throughout the movie, which is that annoying laugh, which is great. But he has connections too. Speaking of Pee-wee and Elvira, he's worked with both of them. I know they were all part of the Groundlings comedy troupe. So.
And his one comedic line is probably one of the best ones in the whole movie.
What do you think R.J. Fletcher Sr. would be saying if he were alive today?
Help, let me out of this box. I can't breathe in here. Help, let me out.
And that's what a lot of this movie is. It's got a lot of good cliches to build on, and a lot of really interesting things that you haven't seen anywhere else.
It has just so many things going on. Every minute there's a new little gag or a new sequence, or just all the the throwaway jokes and the cutaway scenes that don't really connect to the story, but that's what kind of keeps it fresh the whole way through.
Right. And but at the same time, like I say though, it doesn't feel like it's too frantic.
No.
It's definitely it's paced just right.
That perfect balance. And even at the end, even though it's cliche, when they win the station back and that music swells, it genuinely makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Even though it's so corny, it works.
Well, especially the way that they win finally.
Yeah, right at the last minute with the homeless guy.
I'll take whatever you got left.
How much is that?
$2,000.
And the double die penny.
That's a line I always. It's not even like a terribly funny line. It's just the way the guy delivers it. But when I was a kid, he's like, "I got this really neat watch."
Plus, I got me a real neat watch. It's a Rolex.
That's like, where do you find that guy?
Yeah. Karma comes back in the end to bite Kevin McCarthy in the ass.
Yeah.
So everybody gets his comeuppance. You know, it's like what's that line about Melrose Place? Everyone you like gets kissed, and everyone you don't like gets thrown in a pool. That's the end of UHF.
There you go.